Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing a review of Pokemon Go, which is a pretty fun game, I will say. I'm very late on this, but I wanted to play it for a while, because a lot of people, when new games come out, they want to be right out of the gate, they want to be the first video on YouTube, and be horribly inaccurate with it. I, however, do not do that, so I have waited a good allotted amount of time before I started doing this. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. First of all, it starts like most games. You create a character, you choose male or female, which didn't really start until Gen 3. But you do all that, you customize your character, and then you get to pick your starters, like every other game. However, in this one, you have the Gen 1 starters, but there's also a Easter egg. If you walk around, the starters will keep spawning back in front of you, and they'll keep going and going. And then eventually, there'll be a Pikachu there as well. So you can actually have Pikachu as your starter. And I would highly recommend it, because I still have not caught one of those damn bastards. I have, I think, 97 Pokemon caught in my Pokedex, but he is one of the two Pokemon I've seen but not caught, which are Snorlax and Pikachu at this point. I've seen one Pikachu the entire damn game, and it was before I had Great Balls and Ultra Balls, so I was not able to catch him. And that was unfortunate. But anyway, after you get your starter, you start going into the meat of the game by leveling up. And basically, you get experience by catching Pokemon, catching them in specific ways, hatching eggs, evolving Pokemon, collecting Pokestop items, battling enemy gyms, and fortifying your own gyms. And every time you level up, you get certain items. Like early game, you might get a potion or a Pokeball or something like that. Certain milestones, I think like 5, 10, 15, and 20 and stuff like that, give you the rarer items like the lures and the incense and the lucky eggs and stuff like that, and incubators, which are very important for hatching eggs. But yeah, they basically just give you items every time you level up, and only certain milestones will give you specific ones, but it all depends on what level you're at. And most of the items that you unlock that way, every time you go to the Pokestops, it'll actually drop those from now on. Like if you unlock Ultra Balls, you'll start to get Ultra Balls from Pokestops. Same thing with like Super Potions, Hyper Potions, stuff like that. So anyway, let's get into the catching Pokemon portion. You find Pokemon. It's not a pedometer game, it's actually GPS based. So you have to actually get up and walk around. You can't cheat like the little Pokewalker they had for Soul Silver and Heart Gold. So yeah, you walk around the real world, and there used to be a nearby tracker that would have footsteps that showed you how close you're getting to it. They completely scrapped that, however. So it's now just the footsteps have disappeared, and it just shows the pictures of the Pokemon. And normally it was something like a 30,000 meter radius is where the Pokemon would spawn. Now it's dropped down like a 15,000 meter radius. So it's a lot easier, but you also don't know which direction you're heading in until you start walking. Basically, the pictures will be there, and they'll get higher to the top if you're getting closer. And then if they just completely vanish, it's like, oh, well, I was going in the wrong direction. But I don't have footsteps to tell me that. So hopefully that's fixed in the future, but as of recording this, which is August 1st, they do not have that fixed yet. So we will see, crossing fingers. But yeah, you basically, when you do finally get a Pokemon, you have to click on it, and then it'll start an encounter. And in this game, you actually have to toss the Pokeballs at them. So you basically slide your finger along the screen there, and the Pokemon will appear in different areas. It'll be closer, it'll be further. Some of them will move and jump around. Zubats are wily things. They will go all over the place. Very hard to catch. But you basically just throw the Pokeball at them, and if it tilts enough times, you caught the Pokemon. But there are certain aspects to it. If it's green, it means it's really easy to catch. If it's yellow, it means it's pretty difficult to catch. If it's like an orange color, it means it's starting to get pretty hard. If it's a dark red, you are probably going to have to throw some Ultra Balls and use some raspberries on it, because it will not be going easily. And basically, when the little circle in the middle starts shrinking, the one that's colored, you throw the ball inside the circle. So it doesn't matter how short it gets, you don't get any kind of bonus unless you actually hit it inside the circle. So it starts off at nice, and then when it's about midway through, it goes to a great, and then when it goes to almost as small as it can get, that's an excellent. And they used to give you 10 EXP for a nice, 50 EXP for a great, and 100 EXP extra for excellent, but I've been throwing greats constantly, and they haven't been giving me any bonuses. The only ones that I've noticed have been giving me bonuses still are the curveballs, which is where you spin the Pokeball around in like clockwise or counterclockwise, and then you throw it towards the Pokemon, and if it hits and catches, it'll give you a curveball bonus, which is only 10 EXP, so it doesn't really matter. But you do have to be careful. Whatever direction you're spinning, once you throw it, it will go wildly in that direction. So you have to aim, let's say you're spinning it to the left, you have to aim it far right, and then it'll curve back into the Pokemon. And it depends on how intensely you spin it, too. But yeah, I would say it is not worth it. I would definitely say to go for great catches, because they're pretty easy to get. and they give you extra 50 EXP. But, as I said, I haven't been getting them, so I don't know if they removed that, or if it's just not working and they need to patch it. But we shall see, because that was a really good way to level up, especially during Lucky Egg time. So hopefully that comes back. Now let's move on to powering up your Pokemon. That is basically, every time you catch a Pokemon, you'll get Stardust and candies. Every Pokemon will give you 3 candies upon catching it, and it'll be at its base level. So let's say you catch a Pidgeotto, you'll still get a Pidgey candy. And like if you catch a Blastoise, you'll still get a Squirtle candy. So it doesn't matter what kind of stage of the evolution you catch, you'll still get the base evolution. So it's just a way to simplify it. Like let's say you're trying to level up a Blastoise, you don't need like 2 Blastoise candies, because that would not be easy. And the other thing you need is Stardust. Now Stardust you get every time you catch a Pokemon. You also get some from leveling up every once in a while. And then you get some from hatching eggs. That's the other one. So you need Stardust and the candies to level up a Pokemon. And it all depends on the level. Like, you'll start out maybe around 200 Stardust, and later in the game you'll get like 2,200 Stardust to level up once. So it all depends on how much CP your Pokemon has. And the candies have to be specific to that Pokemon. Like, let's say you can't take Magikarp candies and level up a Squirtle. Which makes the game a little difficult at times, because there are... For instance, for me, Charmanders do not spawn very often. I have an Ivysaur and I have a Blastoise. In the other 2 chains, Charmander, I still only have a Charmander. And that is quite frustrating, I will say. However, the Blastoise I did catch in the wild, so I didn't evolve all the way up to it. I did, though, evolve a Gyarados, which takes 300 Magikarps, and it is not easy. You are going to have to go to many popular places in order to get those. But anyway, leveling up raises their combat power. And what that does is it raises their HP and their attack and basically their defense. It pretty much just levels them up like a Pokemon game would. And you use that during battles, like gym battles. And soon they're going to be adding player battles where you can just go up to anyone and start a battle with them. Now let's go over to evolving Pokemon. Basically how you evolve a Pokemon in this game is it only relies on candies. You don't need any kind of Stardust for this. So it's pretty good if you do a Pidgey evolution thing, because going from Pidgey to Pidgeotto only takes 12 candies. So if you have a Lucky Egg, you can just keep constantly evolving them, and they'll always give you the same amount. They give you 500 EXP for evolving a Pokemon. So you catch 3 Pidgeys, break them all down, well now you have 12 candies. So pretty much every 3 Pidgeys, you get another evolution. And then you activate a Lucky Egg on top of that. Now that 500 turns into 1,000 EXP. So if you collect like 40 Pidgeys with enough candies to evolve them, you're going to level up pretty quickly. I will say to save that for late game though, because right now, for me to get from level 21 to 22, it takes 75,000 EXP. So that is 75 Pidgeys right there. And I definitely need to hold on to those 2 Lucky Eggs I have for that. But yeah, so depending on the Pokemon, if it's a Pidgey, it's easy. If it's a Weedle, Caterpie, stuff like that, they're easy to evolve. They'll usually take around 12 candies for the very small Stage 2 evolutions. Like if you go from Pidgey, Pidgeotto, Pidgeot, or Weedle, Kakuna, and Beedrill, those only take you 12, and then the next step of the evolution is 50. So you're looking at 72 in total there. So you're not looking at too much at the end. But some of them that only evolve once, it takes about 50. Like a Cubone to a Marowak is 50 candies for that. Now the other ones are a lot harder. The ones that take 100, Oddish, Bellsprout, these starter Pokemon, stuff like that, they take 100 to get to the final stage. And they take 25 to get from basic to stage 1. And then from stage 1 to stage 2, it takes 100 candies. So you're looking at 125 candies on those, which is hard enough. And then you have the hardest in the game currently, which is Magikarps. It takes 300 Magikarps to get a Gyarados. So basically 400 Magikarp candies to get a Gyarados. Now I will say the Gyarados that I evolved, he did come out at 1500 CP, which is pretty good. So I wasn't too disappointed with that. And evolving Pokemon, it'll give you EXP, but it will not give you Stardust, and it'll give you an extra candy. So you don't lose all of your candies from it. But it's mainly just used as a way to power up your Pokemon, because every Pokemon in the game has a CP cap, and that depends on what level you're at. But even at their max level, they all cap out at the same level. So Basic's obviously going to cap out before Stage 1, and Stage 1 is going to cap out before Stage 2. So if you have a Pokemon that evolves twice, it's best just to put it all the way up. Because if you look at the gyms, mostly it's Stage 2 evolutions on top of there. Alright, now let's go over to hatching Pokemon. Basically, you get eggs in this game from Pokestops, and what you have to do is you walk around in the real world, and it'll hatch them, and they come in 3 forms right now. It's the 2-kilometer egg, the 5-kilometer egg, and the 10-kilometer egg. And as you would imagine by their names, they're based on how many steps you have to actually walk. Now, the GPS does sometimes screw up, which is pretty frustrating, so you'll walk like zero point 0.5 kilometers, and then the game will say, oh, you've walked 2. So you end up walking a lot more than you typically would if it malfunctions like that. The best thing would do is turn off Wi-Fi, because if you walk by Wi-Fi hotspots, it'll actually activate it, and it'll throw off your connection for a second, and then when you leave the hotspot, then it'll try to pick up the GPS again, and during that time, it just screws with the whole system. So if you're going to be walking around areas that have Wi-Fi hotspots, just go ahead and turn that feature off completely, and just go off GPS. The 2K eggs, they actually start with the starter Pokemon and Pikachu, which is pretty good, but the other ones are not. Now, Magikarp does come in there as well, which is good for value if you want to either evolve a Gyarados or train up your Gyarados. But aside from the Magikarps and the 4 starters, not very good stuff comes out of there. It's mainly just Weedles, Rattatas, Pidgeys, stuff like that. And then you have the 5K eggs, which some of the better stuff comes out of it, like the Nidoran. You get stuff like Mankey, Cubone, pretty much just second tier kind of things. That's where the bulk of the Pokemon will come from, is from the 5K eggs. Because the 2K eggs, you get about like 10 different Pokemon out of there. The 5K eggs, you get about like 25 or 26 different Pokemon out of it. And then the 10K eggs, you get about 12 different kind of Pokemon in there, so pretty much like the first one. But these ones are the really rare ones, excluding Eevees. You can find Eevees everywhere. I don't know why they're in the 10K egg. Eevees should go way back in the 2K egg. Because I currently have, I've had to break them down, but over the time I've had the game, I've had maybe, I think, 10 different Eevee evolutions, which is 25 Eevee candies per evolution. So, 250 Eevee candies is not a rare item. It's not a rare Pokemon. They are very, very common. I don't know why they ever put it in the 10K egg. Because part of the reason why I'm upset by it, I hatched one 10K egg so far, because I've only received 2 in the time that I've played this game. The first damn one I get was an Eevee. And at this point, I already had, I think, 3 Vaporeons, 2 Flareons, and 2 Jolteons. The other ones I broke down. I did not need any more damn Eevees. And the other ones that come in there are like Kabuto, Ammonite, Aerodactyl. You get Scyther, Pinsir, which Scyther's a little bit rare. Pinsir is not too much for my area. But you basically get stuff like that, like Electabuzz, Magmar, the in-game Pokemon, the ones that are rare to get in the actual game. So yeah, that was very frustrating for me to get an Eevee out of there. I did, however, out of the 5K egg, get a Porygon, which is apparently rare, because the guy who collected all the Pokemon, Porygon was the last one he got. So that is pretty cool, I will say. He's my prized possession right now. But that's enough of the hatching eggs portion. Now we go on to Pokestops. Pokestops are basically real-world locations that they took from Ingress, which I guess they had portals set up for that. And you walk around, like let's say you have a coffee shop nearby, if it's Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, they might have like a painting outside, and the painting will be the Pokestop. Or the place itself could be the Pokestop. Or you could get lucky and have 2 of them there, and one would be the painting and one would be the actual place. So things like, where I usually go is downtown Disney, which if you are a non-Florida resident, you probably think of it as Disney Springs, because they changed the name stupidly. It is not a spring. There are no springs there. However, it is a downtown location, and it's owned by Disney. So, downtown Disney is the proper term you would think they'd stick with. But nope, even though the other name is fine, and I will always use it. But anyway, they have about, I would say, 27 to 28 Pokestops there. And it's quite a bit of walking if you want to hit all of them, but there are probably 13 or 14 that are within, I don't know, quarter mile of each other, so it's not too much walking in between them. And you will probably 2 passes, maybe 3 passes, you will completely fill up your bag there. So hopefully if you're playing this game, you have an area like that nearby, because I have 3. I have this place called the Lakefront, Downtown Disney, and Fun Spot / Old Town, which they all have pretty much the same amount of Pokestops. Downtown Disney, of course, has the most because it's Disney, and there are shops everywhere and art pieces. Man, they have a new Coca-Cola store that is really good. For years, I had been going to Epcot getting that Coca-Cola made in China, which is called like Smart Watermelon. Stuff's delicious. They have that at the Coke store now, so that is good. I will be going there getting 32 ounces of it every time I go there. But anyway, that's beside the point. Pokestops, you basically walk up to them, you click on them, and if you're in range, it'll like open up for you, and you basically just spin it around, and items will drop out of it. The items are mostly randomized, but they said the more popular stops will have more items typically. And you can also set down lures on top of the Pokestop. And what that does is basically like a global incense, where everyone standing around it can get the Pokemon that show up. And you'll get really lucky sometimes when there are 3 Pokestops right next to each other, and people just constantly have them running lures on it. which is nice about downtown Disney. Almost every Pokestop there has lures on it, so even if you're making the rounds and walking between them, you'll just get Pokemon popping up left and right. So it's really good for leveling. And as far as I know, there isn't a limit on what will drop from the Pokestops. I've heard people get the incense and lures and lucky eggs and stuff like that and incubators. I've never gotten them myself, so I cannot verify it, but if someone out there has, then speak up so people will know if it's true or not. Alright, now we move on to the final aspect, which is the battling gyms, which is currently the in-game content for the game. Basically, once you hit level 5, it'll give you the option to join Team Instinct, Team Mystic, or Team Valor. And you pretty much, most people just pick the team based off what color they like more, which is why I chose Valor, among other reasons. And what that means is, whenever you take over a gym, it'll go into your color. Let's say you're yellow, blue, or red. When you take over a gym, you'll become the gym leader, and then it'll be for your team. So any team member coming by can join your gym, and then once they join, another person can join. And now once there's 3 people in there, if a 4th person wants to join, they actually have to train up the gym so they can join in there. Or if you see an enemy gym, you can go and attack it and knock down its prestige. Taking down gyms, however, is a lot easier than training them up. Because when you take them down, you get a team of 6, and when you try to fortify your own gym, you only get 1 Pokemon to do it. And not only that, the amount of prestige you get from taking down a gym, pretty much if you run through the entire gym of an enemy gym, the prestige level will drop an entire level. So it'll go from like a level 3 gym to a level 2. Run through it again, it goes from a level 2 gym to a level 1 gym. Run through it one more time, and it'll drop down to an empty gym. And at that point, you can go in and take it. But be quick, because everyone around it can take it as well, which is an asshole move that people do constantly if it's a popular area. So once the gym goes down, they typically will just put like a 10 CP Pidgey in there or something. Very dick move. If you're listening, don't do it. Actually work for your gyms. Now, if you see it go up and it's a team gym, obviously go ahead and join it, because you're helping your team there. You're making it harder for enemy people to take it down. But if you're trying to fortify a gym, not only do you have to go through 1 Pokemon at a time, but let's say you clear through the entire level, you'll only get like 250 prestige. And I think from 3 to 4, it takes like a couple thousand, maybe 2,000. So you have to run through the gym about 8 times before a slot can even open. The numbers may be off there, but it's close enough. Because I tried getting into a level 8 gym, and it took me about 15 minutes to build up the prestige for the gym. Once I finally get it open, some asshole from my same team just goes in and joins my place. And I looked around, there was no one there. I don't know how they did that. Unless they were inside their house somewhere or location spoofing. But it was very frustrating. Because a level 8 gym is pretty much not going down, especially the one as remote as this. It was all the way back in a neighborhood, so for people to even discover that's going to be a little difficult. But anyway, that's basically where the game leads to, is these gym battles. You go up, and it's basically like, it's not the full game where you go turn-based and you have different attacks. You pretty much have a tap attack and you have a hold attack. The tap attack is just like your basic one, and it'll vary based on damage and attack speed. So tapping fast doesn't typically do anything, but if it has a high attack rate, then you'll pretty much have to tap as fast as it can. You don't want to tap too fast, though, because if you do, I don't know if they fixed this, but the game used to glitch if you tap your screen too much, and it'll make the other person invincible while the game's trying to, like, process how many times you click the screen. So watch out for that. But yeah, someone like Vaporeon is really good for fast attacks, which I don't know if they'd nerfed Vaporeon already, but for a while, that was a very strong Pokemon. And once you tap the screen enough, you build up a special attack, and that'll vary between, like, 1 bar, or 3 bars, 4 bars. It all depends on the intensity of the attack and what attack it is, like how much damage it does, and other various factors. But beware if you use the hold attack, because you are held in place until the animation finishes. So watch out there, because if you're just tapping, you can move out of the way if danger is incoming, which is another thing you can do in battle. You can swipe left and right, and it'll make you dodge attacks if you do it at a certain time, which is really good because the enemy Pokemon telegraphs when it's about to do a special, so you just go ahead and swipe it once they start doing that, and you have a chance to dodge it. Which is really good. I didn't figure that out until late, but you can take down some pretty powerful gyms if you dodge correctly. Which is why I usually just don't use my special unless I have a type advantage. I usually just dash around and use basic attack, dash around. Seems like the best way to go. So yeah, that's all the technical side out of it. Now the reason why this is important is because holding gyms not only helps you rep your team, but it also, if you go into the shop, there are certain bonuses you can get. You can hold 10 gyms per day and get benefits for it. I don't know if you can hold more than 10, but once you hit 10, it caps off on how many benefits you get. every 21 hours it does a refresh. You get 10 gold and 500 Stardust. And the gold is used to buy the microtransaction stuff, which, using this method, you can actually get for free in-game. So I would suggest training up your Pokemon and trying to get some of those lucky eggs from the shop, because you definitely need lucky eggs if you want to level up quickly in the late game. I would say once you get past level 20, lucky eggs start becoming really important. So go ahead and save them early game. You don't really need them right now. Bag upgrades and Pokemon storage upgrades are also very important, so keep that in mind. But going back to the benefits, it actually stacks every gym you hold up until 10. So you start at 10 gold and 500 Stardust, and if you're holding 10 gyms, you get 100 gold and 5,000 Stardust, which is insane on the gold front. Because a bag upgrade, whether it's for items for Pokemon, that's 200 gold. So if you wait 2 days and you have 10 gyms, you get a free bag upgrade, which is very hard to do. It's not easy to hold 10 gyms, and it's probably going to be hard to find them in close enough proximity where you can capture them and then hold them long enough to get the other gyms. But it can be done, and I'm sure people out there actually do it. I typically wait until I have 2 to 3 gyms, and then I just go ahead and cash in, because you don't want to get greedy and lose it all. I've done that before. But yeah, so that's basically all the features they have in the game right now. So let's go on to the whether I like it or not part. I actually think it's really enjoyable. I don't know where this hate is coming from. It's mostly just people that are completely out of the loop, and they don't have any concept of what they're talking about. But someone who's been playing Pokemon since I was like, I've probably been like 6 since I was playing Pokemon, and I'm 21 now, about to turn 22. But yeah, it's a fun game. It's a good callback. It's definitely different. It's not going to be the same walking around RPG element as the other one. They have to make it mobile phone based, so there's going to be like those free-to-play aspects, but I've only spent $5 on the game, and that was when I was early on, and I didn't understand how Pokestops worked. So I had no concept of how a Pokestop worked, or that there were even Pokestops, because I didn't have any in my area when I was starting out. So I was like, well, shit, I can only get Pokeballs from leveling up. That's stupid. They pretty much force you to buy it. So I went ahead and spent $5 on gold, and I bought 100 Pokeballs, and I think an incense or a lucky egg, one of the two. But then after that, after I discovered the Pokestops, I was like, oh, well, that was dumb. I don't know why I spent that money. So from that point on, I haven't spent a dime on it, and I'm already level 21, close to 22, which is weird, because it's the same as my age there. But yeah, I would definitely recommend it. It's a free game, so you're not really losing anything, and people are also complaining about the data usage. The data usage on that thing is minimal compared to everything else I have. I have a Chrome extension that used up, I think, 1.6 gigabytes last month, and Pokemon Go used up like 0.3 gigabytes. So, not even close. And I use them about the same amount of time. I might even use Pokemon Go more than Chrome, which just shows you how much data it's not using up. However, the two cons I have is you can't really hold bugs and game crashes and stuff like that on a game of this scale, because I'm sure when they released it, they weren't expecting this kind of impact. I'm sure they were thinking it was going to be popular, but this game broke so many records right off the bat. It became like the top grossing app in the store, it became the top downloaded, and that was over the course of 24 hours, so they probably were expecting a lot of traffic, but this is way more than they've ever experienced. It's way more than any app has ever experienced, so I will give them a little bit of leeway on the bugs and crashes, but I do want to bring it up just to recognize that it is an issue. There are still bugs going on to this day, and I would say it'd be a fair judgment if you wait until the end of, let's say at the end of August, if there are still bugs in it, then I'd say, yeah, it's fair to go ahead and judge them on it. But for right now, they're a relatively small company, and this traffic is unheard of as far as apps are concerned, so I'll give them the leeway there. Now, the one thing I will take a point off for is they had a lot of, it's basically how most games, they show you, like, the promised footage of, like, the top, this is what the game's going to look like. And then the game comes out, and they're like, well, you know, we're missing a little bit of features, but you get the idea. So they basically did that here as well. They had trading and battles, which were basically, from the start in their promotional videos, they're like, you can trade with your friends, you can battle on the street, and none of that appeared in the final game. So I will take a point off for that, because if they didn't mention it, they didn't bring it up at all, I wouldn't have an issue with it. But the fact that they could have had trading and could have had battles, I was like, well, maybe you probably should have waited a couple weeks or a month before releasing it, because I definitely would have liked to have that feature early on. And I won't, people are complaining that breeding isn't in the game, but if we're going off generations right now, Gen 1 didn't have any breeding. That wasn't introduced until Gen 2, so I won't hold that over their heads. The only reason I'm doing it with trading and battles is because obviously those have been staples since the Pokemon franchise was invented. So, yeah, those are kind of important. But all in all, I would give the game a 9 out of 10 because it is very fun and it's very simple to play. It's not a game that you're going to be investing too much time in, maybe 2 to 3 hours a day if you just want to go to the places that have a lot of Pokestops. So it's kind of a game you just play throughout the day, like, oh, I'm going to sit down and eat. Oh, here's a Diglett. It just popped up out of the ground. So you just go ahead and catch it. So yeah, 9 out of 10. Pretty good score, I will say. I've had a lot of fun with it, and I will definitely play it through Gen 2, because that was my favorite generation of any Pokemon game. Not only did I like the legendary Pokemon, which is my favorite still to this day, Lugia, but it was the only game that not only featured 2 regions, but it had 16 gym battles. Come on now. 16 gym battles. You could have 16 badges in that game. Think about that. You could go through the Johto region, and guess what? Bam! There's the Kanto region, right next door. I mean, how is that not the best one in the series? Come on. Give me a rational argument. As IGN said, Gen 3, too much water, alright? Kanto and Johto, not a lot of water. Maybe if you're going to Cinnabar Islands, but that's another thing. Also, I have, because of the Pokemon Go hype, I have recently bought Pokemon Blue version, which as a kid I always had Pokemon Red, so I was like, let's mix it up a little bit. I bought it in the 3DS store for $10, which is not bad, because I've put like 45 hours into that game. And I just beat it today. And yes, the Mew glitch does work in all of its different facets. There's 2 different methods, and I used both of them, so I have 2 Mews in that. And I went all the way through the game, I put Mew in the Hall of Fame, and I fought Mewtwo as Mew. So that is something I've been wanting to do as a kid, and I have finally achieved it. So that is my update for the day on that, on the Pokemon side. I'm kind of rambling at this point. I haven't done a video in 3 weeks, so I have no natural stopping point. I had a video on July 5th, because it was recorded on July 4th, but I didn't upload it until July 5th or 6th, one of the two. And I made a joke that it was going to be a long time before my next video comes out, maybe even New Year's. And I said that half-jokingly because I knew it was going to be somewhat true. It's currently 3 weeks after that video, and I'm just now releasing one. And this is August 1st that I'm recording this, so it might not even come out until August 3rd, further proving that I'm not very speedy right now. But my job is out in the sun, and it is summer in Florida, so if I'm not working, I'm at home relaxing or sleeping. And then on the weekends, I'm probably catching up on sleep that I lost on the weekdays. So be patient a little bit. Maybe September I'll start picking back up. But for right now, I am very busy, so I basically come back when I can. But anyway, hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.